As of today, more than 1,120 Oregonians have lost their lives to COVID-19. I don't want to lose one more.
Now on KATU News, Governor Kate Brown today urging Oregonians to keep their guard up now that we're one step closer to a vaccine. Why she says we need federal help to reach community immunity.
Before distribution, the vaccine needs backing from doctors here in Oregon. Hear when they're expected to give their stamp of approval.
A few months ago, she told me, "I wish you were like a real mommy." And that was truly heartbreaking.
A mother shares her continuing fight against COVID-19. Her message to Oregonians as we wait for the first doses of the vaccine to ship to the Northwest.
And here's a live look at the House at the center of controversy. We're on your side to get answers from city leaders about the 4-day-long protest on North Mississippi. Who's answering our question and who's not? KATU News at 4 starts now.
This is KATU News at 4, on your side.
That is the way we're being treated is definitely illegal and wrong.
Tonight we are hearing from one Kinney family member. That is the family at the epicenter of an ongoing protest and neighborhood occupation in North Portland. We received a statement in the past half hour from Mayor Ted Wheeler's office condemning violence and threats from any side and saying, quote, the mayor's goal remains a safe resolution to a potentially dangerous situation. Thanks for joining us. I'm Lincoln Graves.
And I'm Deborah Knapp. KATU's Kelly Azer is live in North Portland tonight. And Kelly, you've been trying to speak to city leaders all day today.
We have, and before we get to that, I want to quickly mention we are down the street from that North Mississippi house and that blockade for our own safety. But like you said, we've been reaching out to all of the city commissioners as well as the mayor and the Portland Police Bureau. And while the mayor and the police chief did supply written statements, as you just mentioned, they have denied on-camera interviews to us. And even in those statements, they didn't answer our questions. In fact, we've not heard from a single person from any of our elected officials since all of this started earlier this week. The infamous Red House is not the only home in Portland tied to the Kinney family. In fact, the Kinney family has been staying at this blue house. I confirmed that today when I stopped by and knocked on the door. The man who answered the door identified himself as William Kinney Jr. He says this blue house belongs to his parents. Kinney Jr. agreed to speak with us on the doorstep about all that has been going on surrounding the Red House on Mississippi. Today we learned the company who purchased the Red House at auction would be willing to sell it back to the Kinney family at cost, an amount the family now has acquired through a GoFundMe. So I asked Kinney Jr. about that. And the company who owns the Red House now is saying that they would sell it back to you for that cost price. Would you guys entertain that? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, we didn't sell the house.
Right.
It was somehow sold from underneath us.
My understanding, though, is the house was taken because you were delinquent on your mortgage payments. And so then the bank obviously repossessed at that point. Is that not accurate?
It's partially true.
Now, Kinney Jr. told me that he claims that he stopped paying because the documentation was false and the bank couldn't prove to him what he owed. Now, I have more on that part of the conversation and also what he has to say about the ongoing unrest and even some of the reports of assault and violence that we've been hearing and experiencing ourselves out here on Mississippi. I have that tonight for you at 5 o'clock. Reporting live in North Portland, Kelly Azer, KATU News.
All right, Kelly, thank you. Here's part of a new statement we just received from Police Chief Chuck Lavelle. He says they are pursuing all efforts to de-escalate the situation, writing, quote, I again implore those in the street to dismantle the barricades or leave them behind. That positive solution will reduce the likelihood that police may take action. He also thanked everyone involved, calling it a unique situation that requires cooperation and collaboration. While no official is speaking in person, Multnomah County District Attorney Mike Schmidt addressed the protest in a statement, saying in part, many in our community would have never known about the plight of the Kinney family and the Red House on Mississippi, but for the neighbors and community members who have refused to stand by silent. However, Schmidt says he condemns the violence and intimidation tactics being used. Civil disobedience and First Amendment rights are at the core of a well-functioning democracy. Threatening and assaultive behavior is not.
Multnomah County Sheriff Mike Reese also weighed in today. In his statement, he says on Tuesday, the sheriff's office responded to the Red House for a group of people who were considered trespassing, a claim that the group denied in a statement. Now, before responding, the sheriff's office coordinated shelter resources, bus passes, as well as food, water, and clothing. Sheriff says the situation escalated when deputies went inside the home and found several guns. 6 people were arrested. Once the property was safe, the sheriff's office says it was turned over to the property owner. After the property was cleared, however, that's when the large group returned and started to barricade the street. Reese says, quote, Portland is now facing an armed occupation, putting a couple dozen homes and businesses in the area in danger and jeopardizing everyone's safety. I support Mayor Ted Wheeler and Chief Chuck Lavell's calls for a peaceful resolution before any police action must be taken to restore order.
We have some breaking news just into our newsroom right now. The Supreme Court has rejected a Texas lawsuit backed by President Trump to overturn Joe Biden's election victory. 17 Republican attorneys general and 126 members of Congress joined Texas and the president in urging the Supreme Court to throw out millions of votes in 4 battleground states based on baseless claims of fraud. On Tuesday, the justices turned away an appeal from Pennsylvania Republicans as well. The Electoral College will meet Monday to formally elect Biden as the next president.
Now to the coronavirus. It is likely the FDA will authorize emergency use for Pfizer and BioNTech's COVID-19 vaccine before tomorrow morning. The CDC committee is meeting this weekend to consider if the vaccine should be offered to the public. This as the need grows increasingly urgent. For a second straight day, more than 3,000 people died in this country from the virus. And right now, more than 107,000 Americans are hospitalized. That's more than ever before.
3 million, that's the number of Oregonians that need to get vaccinated before herd immunity is achieved in our state. Governor Kate Brown seemed hopeful that number could be reached while giving an update on the pandemic this morning. The governor said the state will need federal assistance to reach a goal of inoculating more than 10,000 people a day. Brown says despite Oregon having one of the earliest outbreaks at the start of the pandemic, the state has the 5th lowest number of cases in the U.S.
Yes, we've done relatively well compared to the nation as a whole. Unfortunately, as of today, more than 1,120 Oregonians have lost their lives to COVID-19. I don't want to lose one more.
Brown says she and other state officials are preparing for vaccine distribution. Those hardest hit and most at risk will be prioritized.
Well, the Pfizer vaccine will also need to be endorsed by a team of medical professionals from the western states. A work group made up of experts from Oregon, Washington, California, Nevada will independently review the vaccine. KATU's Lachey Wesley shows us how this will affect the timeline for distribution.
These are the 2 Oregon doctors that are part of that work group. They tell KATU News they've already started the review process and will meet this weekend to make a decision. With the FDA's authorization of the first COVID-19 vaccine expected by this weekend, the Pfizer vaccine will go through an additional review process in Oregon, Washington, California, and Nevada. A team of scientists, doctors, and health experts from 4 states will review the vaccine, an additional level of scrutiny. Dr. Laura Byerly, the medical director of Virginia Garcia Memorial Health Center, and Dr. Lewis Picker, an OHSU immunologist, will represent Oregon on the work group.
Some worry that this work group could ultimately delay the vaccine. Is there any chance of that happening?
You know, we would not delay the vaccine or recommend delaying the vaccine unless we thought that there was something fishy going on.
Dr. Picker tells me he's already started reviewing information from the CDC and FDA and watched the entire FDA panel discussion Thursday. He agrees with their assessment that the vaccine is safe and effective.
Dr. Picker tells me that he does think that this work group will ultimately endorse the Pfizer vaccine. As KATU News reported, the Pfizer vaccine will be shipped to Oregon on Tuesday. Reporting, Lachey Wesley, KATU News.
One Oregon mother says COVID-19 has turned her life upside down. Dara Isaacson shared her months-long battle with the coronavirus with the entire state this morning during the governor's update. She says she contracted COVID-19 in March, right before her birthday. Nearly 10 months later, Dara is still battling the virus and says some days she can barely stand up or even get out of bed. But she says she still believes Oregonians will join together to end the pandemic.
This is not the time for blame or arguments. This is the time to make some sacrifices so that we can come together and keep this virus from harming any more families like mine.
Dara says the hardest part of her battle is not being able to play with her 5-year-old daughter, Bailey. Coming up tonight at 5, what her family is forced to do right now just to make sure she's not missing her little girl grow up.
The Oregon Health Authority is reporting more than 1,600 new cases today and 16 additional deaths. The total amount of cases since the start of the pandemic is now more than 91,000. In Washington, the total is at more than 192,000 with more than 2,800 deaths. Still ahead, YouTube has a new policy it says is fighting against election fraud, but some say it's blocking free speech.
Plus, man's best friend could be your lifesaver. How your dog may be able to tell if you're infected with COVID.
Overcast skies out there, plenty of rain coming down, and in the Cascades, man, oh man, the snow is flying. I've got the forecast coming right up.
And here's a check of our Chevy Traverse time-saver traffic with ODOT cameras. Looking at I-84 at 28th, you can see the rain splashing up from the roadways, but traffic is moving nicely. Next, Highway 26 at Sylvan, there's the backup heading down towards the tunnel, already stretching far out there all the way up to the Sylvan Hill. We're back after this.